by background, and as well have been working for many years, more than 10 years in the field of child protection. I'm part of the Terre des Hommes Europe team, and for today I will be moderating this webinar that you have been showing your interest. First, just I'm very excited to see actually the geographical coverage of the webinar. I was just looking a bit the chat and to see people from many countries, very interesting. So thank you very much for joining us on this webinar. Actually, the topic it is interesting, relevant, and I think what is making this webinar quite special is that we'll be sharing two interesting models actually that have been showing some results and have been implemented. So those are practices that will be exactly explaining how by giving children the tools and space by adults, they can be really acting as agents of change and not only contribute to improve their community, but as well to address different topics such as might be violence against children and social norms that are related with that. For today, we'll have as the first speaker a very interesting program that Madiha Ansari will be sharing with us. And how they have managed actually to engage children and some of the success factors and how they have been able to mobilize especially youth and in order to really be playing an active role as agents of change. So without further ado, I give it the floor to Madeha, and please introduce yourself, and all ears are on you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alketa. I'm really excited to be here and to meet everybody and to learn about the Revis project as well. I'm excited to see lots of colleagues from Child to Child on the webinar as well. Many former colleagues, because I used to work with Child to Child. And now I run this organization called Cities for Children. Just to share a little bit, I'm going to share my screen. Just to share a little bit about the organization, we were set up to protect what we call the right to a childhood for children in urban poverty, the right to read, to play, and to feel safe. And essentially, we work with schools and protection centers that give services to underserved children on the margins of cities. And we help them deliver playful learning programs. So we build programs around that look at not just learning, but also well-being. To contextualize.
Sorry, for the moment, we cannot see your presentation, but we just see the video, I think. We cannot see the presentation. Yeah.
I'm sorry, hang on.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but...
Oh, that's an important interruption.
It's okay now.
Okay. So that's what we mean by the right to a childhood. No?
No, it's not working. When you go to slideshow, no, sorry.
When you go, I think, to the full screen, then we don't see it. But we saw the presentation before you put it for the full screen option.
Okay. All right, maybe we can just... Shall I keep it like this?
Yeah, we can see it now. Yeah, maybe you can just... do you know how to remove these slides in the left corner? No, yeah, it is better.
Sorry about this. I'm not sure why it's not working, because I can see it perfectly.
No, yeah, it happens very often with this full screen mode.
Okay. So just to contextualize a little bit, we've been working a lot in Pakistan and with non-formal schools and service providers that reach kids that otherwise fall through the cracks of mainstream services. So this is the kind of space that we would often work with. It's open air. But what we believe really is that it's not just the physical features of the space that matter, but what happens inside. Our mantra is that happy memories build resilience for children, not just to keep coping, but also for them to learn better. So that's what we try and build within those spaces. The kids that we work with are often street connected, so they may live on the streets or work on the streets or depend on them for survival in some way. And a lot of the time, in Pakistan particularly, they may be from Afghan refugee communities, or they may be from internally displaced communities, or from migrant communities that have moved for economic reasons. So partners in learning, or as we call it in Urdu, Sikho Sikhao Saathi, is the translation of Sikho Sikhao Saathi, was our response to school closures during COVID-19. When schools closed down, a lot of these kids didn't have access to digital learning options. And they went into the state of panic because they were afraid of the risk, not just of learning losses, but actual dropout for kids who would be under pressure to maybe start working. And so this model was something that that they were actually very keen to pick up at the time. And so we immediately were able to adapt and to roll it out across 8 different schools in 2 different iterations. About 1,500 children were engaged, 300 older children with about 1,000 younger children. And the way that the model worked was it was a child-to-child. It was originally a child-to-child early learning program called Getting Ready to School for School. And we looked at it, adapted some of the sessions for the context, brought in some new ones that were infused with Montessori principles, as well as some of the things that we wanted to do in terms of playful learning. And through teachers, through this strong network of teachers, we would train older children to deliver these fun, playful early learning sessions in safe little bubbles within their communities while schools were closed. So one big partner, Bada Saathi, would be grouped with up to 5 little partners who would be within the neighborhood. And I think it's important to mention here that these were communities that did have contact with each other, even sort of where children had contact with each other, even in the most extreme lockdown conditions, because they were sort of informal settlements where children would spill out into kind of the alleyways. And so we wanted to A, structure that interaction, and B, make sure there were protocols around it so that they could do it safely. So there was hand washing, there was open air, there would be masks. We sort of built it in a way that it would work for the communities at the time. This is what some of the sessions could look like. I really love this picture. So this little girl is presenting this picture book. And I just love the confident way in which, she's starting out, but also the utter engagement of the little partners. So a really important part of the program was the bond that was created between the little ones and the older ones. And what ended up happening was that the older children were able to bring, during this time of chaos, some sense of routine, something to look forward to for the younger children at a really crucial time for their brain development, for the brain development of the little preschoolers. And at the same time, they were able to maintain their own connection with learning and with education and with the schools. So in that sense, it was important for both the older ones as well as the little ones. For the little ones, the emphasis was on building actual school readiness skills. And during this time, so these results are from the first 17 sessions, we were able to do a baseline and an end line. and there was no other contact with any other learning opportunities during this time. So all the learning during that time was attributed to what the older children led in their sessions. So that we saw things like counting, the ability to count from 1 to 10, doubling for kids who were just entering school, them starting to speak up, beginning to, piece together picture stories, building their vocabulary, being able to start to recognize shapes, but also there were opportunities for them to exercise creativity. So over here we have this little girl who's making this amazing thing out of Play-Doh. And they'd never used Play-Doh before, actually. And then the follow-up session was to use low resource materials around them. So to actually use mud and make toys and things out of mud. So there they were building motor skills and the strength to be able to hold and manipulate pencils, but also just being able to explore and really have fun with each other. So that was the focus for the little ones. And for the older children, we saw that there were huge gains in terms of social emotional learning. So we did begin to analyze. We had a number of ways in which we gathered qualitative data. We would have weekly reflection records that came in. We had focus groups, we had body mapping that happened. And we looked at it through the lens of, initially we looked at it through the lens of the Castle framework, and looked at how it affected domains like social awareness, self-awareness, self-management, sense of responsibility, and relationship skills. But then we quickly saw that there were themes that were emerging that the older children would speak about that were particularly important. And some of them were to do with confidence, some of them were to do with group management, some of them were to do with problem solving. I put this picture in here because this is a great illustration of young people taking the responsibility to solve problems and really demonstrating agency. So the picture book that we saw before, we didn't have enough copies of it. And so the big partners decided to make their own. and they made these beautiful little picture books with, the vegetables that were growing above the ground and below the ground, and went ahead with their sessions anyway. So one of the questions that we would ask them really was, did they bring in any new ideas? And that we took as an indicator of agency at the time. In terms of the themes that really emerged from their body mapping, these are not percentages, these are counts. But the main themes that came out were in terms of communication, positive self-image. So I can do this. Before I wasn't so sure that I could do this, but now I know I can. When I saw my little partners, I got confidence in me too. Those were the kinds of responses that came out. Then in terms of communication, a lot of the responses said, before I was shy or I couldn't speak in front of people, but now I have the confidence to speak in front of people. So confident communication was a big theme that came out. Then we spoke particularly about the space that the older children were to create in communities where domestic violence and violent conflict resolution is a norm. So the kind of space that we wanted to create, we spoke to them about, and it came out in the responses later on. I learned how to control my impulses, and I learned how to teach with love. And the final bit was around just caring for other people and demonstrating empathy. In terms of children, in terms of the safeguarding, because I know that this was a part of the conversation that we started to have and we were meant to have, some of the important elements that we saw there was to make sure that there was community engagement. So all the time there would be a designated adult or parent or sibling present in the open air sessions. We hired community coordinators to ensure that that protocols were being followed. And then it was important to keep the messaging constant, even for the teachers, even for the older children. It was really important to actually have those conversations around positive discipline, around teaching with love, and make sure that the spaces that we were creating were nurturing and weren't perpetuating these norms of violence and of asserting authority through violence. That's just one of the an illustration of the protocols that was followed during the time. So they would the first thing they would do was to wash their hands, and even afterwards, the teachers reported that the first thing that the little ones would do in communities where this was, you know, we had to talk about the concept of hand washing. The first thing they did when schools reopened was they would go wash their hands and then they would come sit down. So this was a success that we counted. And then in terms of the spaces that were created, this was some of the feedback that we got from the older children, that I learned how to teach with love. Before, sometimes my hands could cause harm, but now I want that no one should experience harm or any kind of pain from my hands. At first, I used to hit kids, so I felt very angry. Now I take care of kids with love, and it feels so nice. So that difference in how the older children felt, even with that change in approach, thought that was important. And then the last one is, I thought this was beautiful. When talking to little children, your face should be a smile. I'm going to speak a little bit about play, because I think that was one of the important ways in which not just we didn't just ensure that children enjoyed learning, but also that the spaces that were created had that nurturing element to them. So one of the older children said, you know, if we teach children through play, they learn faster. And we built in sessions that had guided play in them, and you know, playful learning is an approach, so it's about how it's done. But what was amazing was that the children brought their own ideas of what to do in the sessions and how to make them engaging. So one of the questions that we would ask every week was, did you do anything that wasn't part of the session plans already? And they would come up with poems, they would come up with crafts activities, free play, hide and seek, hopscotch. They had this range of ideas that they had the confidence to share and to bring into the session. So we thought that was really significant. This was one of the tools that we shared. So we shared these board games, Ludo, Parcheesi, and afterwards, some of the kids, you know, so they had to give the boards back, but afterwards, some of them would draw the board in the sand and use dice, or use rocks or stones as dice and players, and keep playing the games. In terms of wider impact, I think one of the big things was that learning was brought home to communities that weren't necessarily they didn't necessarily have literate adults present. So for the first time, mothers and sisters engaged with the learning of the younger children in ways that they hadn't before, and expressed that they wanted to learn too. And also we found it significant that when the teachers started out, they didn't think that the children and young people would be able to do this, to lead the sessions. They very much wanted to be in control. But by the end of it, their attitudes had changed. They were able to support children to lead. Oops. And they had their own ideas as well about, you know, what children could do in those sessions. In terms of what worked to enable, to sort of make sure that children could be these agents of change, one of them was to build a teacher and adult buy-in, to actually say, okay, you know, it's okay to let go. And it's okay for them to go ahead in their communities, or even if they were doing it within school spaces, to be able to, they can do this. But before they could do it, they needed the knowledge and the tools and the confidence in their own knowledge. So that adult support was really important. They would have a weekly touch point with the teachers, where they would go through the session plans and, discuss their own ideas, discuss any challenges, and then they would go forth and lead. So that weekly support we found to be really important. Another thing was to actually articulate the amazing things that they had done. So at the end of it, we had these celebrations within the community, these show and tell sessions where parents were also invited. But it was an event. It was a thing, and to be able to reflect in that way, and to be able to reflect not just on the stage, but to be able to say, okay, I wasn't a champion of education during this really difficult time where the whole world was struggling, and this was an amazing thing that I did. We thought that was an important element, actually, at the end. And finally, to be able to trust communities and be able to engage children, to take that step to engage them as partners in safeguarding and learning. I think that's where it all starts from. So those are the things that we thought that worked well. I'm happy to discuss further if anybody is interested. Here are our details. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about the Revis experience as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Madiha. Very interesting. And actually, this smoothly preparing us for the other presentation or sharing of practices. But just maybe to some takeaways from my side during your presentation is really through the methodology that you have been implementing. It's really showing this partnership of adults with children, but giving the trust and having the trust that they can make it and they can really be playing an active role. It's really what it's making a difference. And in your example, this is really showing that it has been successful. Another point that it is quite crucial, and in Revis as well, we'll have the opportunity to share it, is how actually through the engagement of children and youth, we manage to have their development overall being influenced. And you show that how their social skills, their personal skills, but some as well has been improved due to the participation in the project and really acting as a support for others. So why we thought in terms of as organizers to bring together the example of Asia, South Asia on this, and as well of Revis, is because both practices have as a common this peer-to-peer collaboration and really methodologies that have this participatory approach with the embedded quite in deep in terms of the interventions. For the participants, so if you have, and before you forget, if you have any question that you have for Madiha, please write it in the chat, like till we go to the end of the Q&A session, but just we'll take it on from there, of course. And now I would like to invite Marta Bene, that is our colleague from Terdesam, that she will be introducing how this Revis project has been working and how we have managed in the countries where the project has been implemented to involve children and really see the impact of participatory methodologies in the children and peers development. Marta?
Thank you very much, Alketa. My name is Marta Bene. I'm working at Terdesam Regional Hub in Budapest, and very glad to have you here. Thanks a lot for Madiha for this very inspiring model. And yes, I would like to give you some short overview of the Revis project. And then we can hear about some country-specific experiences also. So the Revis project title refers to responding to violence among against children in schools and adjacent settings. And the Revis project is co-founded by the Rights, Equality and Citizenship Program of the European Union 2014-2020. The overall goal of the Revis project is to respond to peer violence among children. And the project is using an innovative approach as trying to prevent, combat, or respond to peer violence through transforming the social and gender norms and behaviors, and create a space for children to challenge the harmful norms that lead to peer violence and to promote the positive norms. And also an important aim of the REBIS is to make the children and young people involved in the project become social influencers, agents of changes, to make them able to develop their own solutions to the problem of peer violence. The project is implemented in 4 countries, in Bulgaria, Croatia, Romania, Serbia, and coordinated from Hungary. Let's see some numbers in the project. In the project, there are 40 schools and educational settings involved in the 4 countries, so 40 schools altogether. 80 school staff were trained in the project, and there are around 1,600 children and young people involved in 4 countries. The whole process during the project aims to accompany and support these children and young people on the path of becoming agents of change. So starting from the theory and arriving to practice on responding to peer violence through self-developed solutions. How this process is planned. At the beginning of the project, a curriculum has been developed on peer violence, how to respond to peer violence through transforming, shifting social and gender norms. Then school staff were trained on this curriculum. The trained school staff are the facilitators who were doing or are doing activities, group activities with children and young people based on this curriculum in the schools. Then the process continued with participatory workshops with the children, implemented to present the children methods of participatory action research and methods of creative design thinking to respond to peer violence. So children are encouraged to come up with their own prototype ideas, to respond to peer violence emerged in their local context. And children are sending their prototype ideas for the national contest. There are national contests in each of the project countries, and there are also grants available for the implementation of the winner prototypes. There are also child-led social media campaigns in other countries at national level, and the widespread promotion of these child-led solutions. Where we are now in the project, the national contest is organized in all the countries for the prototype ideas. So the children are coming up, are sending these ideas, and the contest is ongoing in the countries. There is a bit time difference in the organization in the 4 countries. Let me share some very general feedback experiences we noticed so far on the participatory workshop, so the action research and the design thinking contest so far. So we noticed that for some students or some part of the students, it was not usual to have such an active role. So they are not used to be asked or be heard so often. So they are not used to have the opportunity to develop something of their own and think outside the box. This shows us that it's really necessary to introduce more programs like Readiness into the school system. So programs to involve them and empower children so they can act like really influencers, they can be agents of changes. So it's important to give them the opportunity to make them voices heard. There are a lot of different prototype ideas arrived by the children, so the campaign ideas are very various. There are ideas focusing on how to combat the harmful norms, and other ideas more focusing on promoting the positive examples already existing in the schools. The campaigns are combining performances or posters or videos. They are very different, and the children were encouraged to use local media, the support of municipalities, cities, also companies that could support the implementation of the prototypes. So these are some general feedbacks so far, and we will have the chance to hear also some country-specific experiences. There will be a widespread further promotion of the child-led solutions, so the prototypes implemented. And we will be organizing also webinars to present you the child-led solutions on Child Hub platform. So if you are curious, there is a dedicated page for the Revis activities and Revis materials on the Child Hub platform. So please visit that session dedicated to Revis. Thank you. I give back the floor to you, Alketa.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you for giving this overview, quite thorough in terms of what the Revis project activities have been, but as well to explain what is kind of the innovative part of this project is exactly giving the opportunity to children themselves to be able to identify or propose prototypes and later on to be able to implement them. And to hear more in terms of how concretely actually in one of the countries, part of the project, this experience has been working. It is Borislana that should be introducing the experience of Revis in Bulgaria and how this setting up and how has been going the collaboration with the schools, but as well what have been some of the key success factors that might be in terms of learnings for you in order to implement or make it successful, this kind of interventions. So I see already that we have some questions in the chat, but just to give it as well the opportunity to the other presenters. Please.
Thank you, Alketa. Thank you, all of you that you joined this webinar. Thank you, Marta, that you introduced our project. Maybe my role is not to speak about, to present the project with the traditional terms like objective goals, results, and target groups. I would like to present our work on the project through the personal story and experience and the impact maybe of the main actors. I am Borislava Gitsova. I am working for Social Activities and Practices Institute, which is NGO working in Bulgaria, and we are partners, a project partner. I will share with you our own experience on empowering children to become agents of change and social influencers in Bulgaria, and what are some successful factors we identified in Bulgaria. I will share with you my presentation, but it's mostly photos, and I will speak about the process behind these emotional photos. Just confirm that you see my presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
If you
okay,
can
thank you.
slideshow, maybe to see if I have full screen.
Do you see my second slide?
No.
No.
The same problem. Okay, I will change manually. Can you see now the second slide?
Yes, we
Yes.
are.
Yes, thank you. I think that many projects are aimed at the problem of violence, but what is the specific and where is the focus here? The focus is precisely on the children who spend most of their time and life in the school with their peers and with their teachers. The teachers have a really important role, not only for the education of the children, but also for building their relationship skills, social emotional skills, and self-awareness. And when the students have supportive relationship and opportunities to develop and practice social, emotional, and cognitive skills across many different contexts, academic learning accelerates. And teachers share that the problem of violence is really serious. It is also useful to recognize that schools sit within a community and with what happens in this community at home and and in the wider society also influence about violence occurs, how violence occurs, and how it is treated and how it is addressed. The children often feel unsure about implementing some strategies, and they need a lot of support. As a feedback from our facilitators who are working in the schools, the problem of violence here in the projects is seen through a new perspective, through the children's understanding of social norms, the referent groups whose judgments children care about and follow, and the connection between harmonious social norms around the violence against children in their own school community. The most important thing that happens in the project is that the children have the opportunity to communicate with their children in a different way, to talk about topics that are really important for them. And on the other side, the teachers also define this is a very valuable experience for them that gives them an opportunity and a different perspective. And together with the children, can actively participate in their school community and finally can propose their own solutions. We made an experiment together, children and adults in one place and train them as equal participants. And this was very well received by everyone and worked out very successfully. The feedback from the participants, all of them was very positive. From one side, the children were not confused by the adults. On the other side, the adults were able to create new relationships with the children and to see them in a different way and role, to talk them freely about topics that they haven't discussed before. And both groups had opportunities for reflection, both personally and professionally, which was really, really new for them. It was very nice that there was a conversation on different topics, as I said, that obviously affects both children and the adults. And we encourage young people to express their opinions, to express their feelings freely without any judgment. It was valuable that we went through the process of change from a personal, interpersonal, and community perspective. And everyone willingly participated in the exercises and were really reflective on what is happening there. I believe that we built a good foundation that can easily and with a little adaptation be multiplied and somehow replicated so that the same understanding can be built in the wider school teams, and some good practices and initiatives can be developed. We was very interested how aware and how reflective the children are, whether they're more assertive or quieter or more observant, but everyone had something to contribute according to their strengths and capabilities. And I don't think that there were any kids that were left alone and were not included in the group. They showed tolerance, empathy, they listened to each other, the atmosphere were very friendly and very supportive. And I want to share, this is the idea, one of the ideas of one of our schools. But after this big training, but this is some experience between 10 schools and over 40 children and facilitators, that now we are at the moment when all of 10 schools are implementing participatory action research workshops to share this experience from this training, and to show the others how to develop their own ideas to make the school environment positive and safety. And do you know what need the children pointed the most? The need of a place in the school where they can communicate, they can listen music, they can play sports, or have their own initiatives. And because often the situation of violence, there is a lack of communication between children, between adults, of course, and they did not know each other, and they can't accept other different views. So maybe this is the connection of their ideas to find a place to have informal communication with the others. And the last picture, yes, I would like to share that the atmosphere was very supportive, very friendly. And this is our group with children and facilitators together, very enthusiastic, feeling involved, and learned a lot about themselves, a lot about the others, and they learn how to go to the next steps. So they will go in their school and they will collect their own ideas and projects about their school. Thank you. I am here if you have other questions, comments, or anything to share.
Thank you, Borislava. Thank you very much for the presentation. I see that Madia already has been answering to some of the questions, but we'll be happy to take on some of them. Or you want me? I have actually a question for both of you that maybe I didn't notice that this was addressed in the chat. So what, in my perspective, it would be interesting that maybe for the audience as well, if you can share what are some of the challenges that you have been encountering actually while mobilizing children first, but as well in terms of if you have encountered, of course, challenges to when working with children, with the teachers and engaging teachers. Whoever wants to start first. Madiha?
Yeah, sure. I started to talk about it a little bit, that initially I think I think one of the success factors was actually building teacher buy-in, but when they started out, I think just convincing teachers that children can do it, I think at least in this context was difficult, because it's a very sort of, I think a lot of the classrooms are very teacher-led. There's a hierarchy that's there. For the young people to be sort of leading learning was a new idea that we had to sort of we just had to sort of make sure that all of their concerns were addressed as well. And then the other thing was that then when I think a few sessions and they just saw it working, I think it took a few sessions for the children to get used to it as well, for the older children to get used to it, for them to get used to managing the group as well. It was challenging for them in the beginning, but a few sessions in, I think by session 3 now we're seeing there's a change, because we've done it a few times now and we've done shorter versions of it as well. And by the 3rd time, we got this. So, and they start bringing in their own ideas as well. I think there is a difference when it comes to implementing the program in community settings versus the classroom setting, because we've done it within schools as well. But if it's a school-based setting, then there are automatic safeguards that are in place. But with a community setting, we just had to really make sure that there would be an adult present, that the way that things were done, was a way that parents could trust, and nothing that we, wouldn't want would happen. So I think that was doing the sessions in communities was a challenge.
Thank you. Borislava, would you like to add from your experience?
Yes. Our first challenge was that after some research and observation in Bulgaria, there are attitudes that allows some forms of violence, and there are stereotypes that confront social and gender norms. And it was our first challenge, how to explain and how to work on this topic with teachers, because they are very sensitive about this topic. And here the gender is a crucial word. But what we saw, and we don't have any difficulties with this topic. Yes, we adapted some of the materials, we adapted some of the tools and methods, but the main methodology was accepted from all of our partners. We confirmed that we presented in front of our ministry, so we need their support. And we worked on this topic with their support.
Thank you. I see that from the chat, if I can take some of the, I see the ones that you already have responded, Madiha, but another one that I would like to take it is from Muriel, if I pronounce right your name. How will the peer-to-peer activity become integrated in schools in general? For the sake of sustainability and have impact across all schools, are there any plans or such plans? Madiha?
So I think one thing that so we've tried it in different kinds of settings. We've tried it when schools were closed, when they were open with less frequency, and it can work. It's not a replacement for school. The sessions are not going to replace preschool, but they're wonderful for scaffolding learning and for sort of really bolstering foundational literacy and numeracy skills for the little ones, and also just general knowledge of the world. And they have value for the older children as well that the schools have seen and acknowledged. So it's something that really depends on uptake for schools, but it's very easy to roll out and to scale up. And we have been having actually conversations. It's early days, but we've been having conversations with government and presenting this as something that could be something that would be in the Pakistan context, a good response to school closures because of the floods, but also a good response, a good way of reaching children who find it difficult to access formal schools and who need to build those skills to be able to enter and to thrive in schools. So it is something that definitely has potential and wider applicability.
Thank you. Borislava, do you have any point to add on this, on the sustainability?
I just want to add that the potential of Revis is really big because we created a tool for parents, we created a tool for professionals, teachers, and psychologists, and we created kind of methodology for group work with children. So this can be, as I said, replicated in other schools, and our goal is really to promote this because we gathered all our main actors in the school community: parents, teachers, and students.
Thank you. Any other question from the participants? Maybe that I missed, Andrea? Or that you would like to do it now?
Just to add on to what Borislava was saying about norms of violence, I think we've also seen that a lot of the time, if kids are coming from families where violence is normalized, it's just part of their response mechanisms. So a lot of the time the parents would say, oh, yes, take our children, beat them if they don't learn. And I think it took a lot to actually have that conversation and say, okay, this is not an acceptable tool, and it's not part of the ways that we will use going forward. So to even create that idea that violence is not an acceptable response takes work. And then after that, whether it's children, whether it's teachers, there's a real need for strategies or actual practical alternatives to violence, because a lot of the time they say, okay, then what else do we do? If this is not how then what do we do? How do we manage the classroom? How do we manage the children? They won't listen to us. So I think both are important. So the messaging around, okay, this is not okay, but also this is how else we can do things.
And actually, to illustrate that, one of the codes that I noticed and I noted down from was one of the teachers that was saying that those hands before, if I quote it right, were used to cause harm, but now I'm aware of that. And so this is something that it is somehow showing awareness. That is the first step if we want to really change the social norms. So this was quite interesting to hear it, and really said in that way. So thank you, Madiha. I don't see any other question. So if we don't have more, I would really like to thank you, Madiha and Marta and Borislava, for your presentations. Very interesting, and as well, please do invite the participants, if they have interest, to attend the other Revis webinar, when we'll be introducing the prototypes that have been coming out from the children's consultations, and hopefully, Madia, for you as well, some of the experiences and methodologies that were shared here to be contextualized and taken over in your context as well. So thank you. I don't know if the others, and please last word from the presenters. Yeah, Madia, you go first. No.
I just wanted to say thank you, and I really look forward to the Revis presentation, actually, because this is something that, I mean, violence in schools and violence in classrooms, it's something that is still very much a real problem in so many parts of the world. Yeah, I think it takes a collective effort to actually change mindsets. So I look forward to learning.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Andrea, would you like to say the last technical information? Yeah.
Yes, well, now on your screen, you can see evaluation polls. So I would like to ask you to take a second and give us feedback. It is really important for us. And for all of you that want to receive a certificate of attending, I will write my email in the chat, and just please email me your name and family name, and I will send you the certificate of attendance for this webinar. So here it is. That's my email. Thank you very much for answering the questions. Thank you for joining us today. The recording of this webinar will be available soon on Child Hub webinar page. So if you were not able to listen to it from the beginning to the end, it will be available at the page. We will send you a reminder email as soon as we set up the video.
Thank you very much to Andrea, and also for Aketa for organizing and facilitating. Thanks for the speakers, and thanks for all of you, for the attendees, for your attention.
I hope.